All right, welcome to the Rise community today. I am so excited about my guest today. Barbara Huson is the leading authority on wealth, women, and power. On women, wealth, and power. As a best-selling author, financial therapist, teacher, wealth coach, Barbara has helped millions of people take charge of their finances and their lives. She's written, I think you're up to 9 books now, Barbara?
8.
8 books. And I love this woman. I have known Barbara for years and years and years. We met on the streets of New York, and it was a long story, but we don't have to go there now. But Barbara, thank you for being on the Rise community today. Welcome. And I just love and adore you. Thanks for being here.
Well, I love and adore you. And I just have to tell you that Richard and his wife married me and my good husband, the good husband. So,
we don't take responsibility for the other ones.
No.
The good one we were involved in.
Yeah.
Okay, Barbara, let's start with your story. Will you start with your story? Tell us how you got to be who you are today.
Richard, swear to God, if anyone had ever told me when I was younger that I would be talking to your people, that I would have written books, that I would be a financial expert, I would have told them they were nuts. I grew up in a wealthy family. I didn't understand money. And whenever I asked my father about it, he always said, don't worry, because under that was the unspoken assumption there'll always be a man to take care of you, which I thought was great advice. I didn't understand money. I just wanted to spend it. And there was always a man. First, there was my father. And then I married a man who was a lawyer. And then he became a stockbroker. So he was perfect, right? Well, it turned out he was a compulsive gambler. And I find out every year, many times a year, that he was gambling my money, my inheritance away. And here's the insane part, is I continued to let him manage the money because I was so intimidated and so terrified by anything financial. Finally, after 15 years, we got a divorce. And I decided money's not my thing. I do not want to deal with money. Well, I have this theory, and maybe some of you know what I'm talking about. If you don't deal with your money will deal with you. And I started getting tax bills for over $1 million, actually almost 2 million, 1 million. My father wouldn't lend me the money. And that's when I knew I had to get smart. So I started, I did whatever they told you, what they told you to do. I started reading the books, I started going to classes, and my eyes would glaze over, my brain would fog up, and I just felt stupid. Like I couldn't learn. But I was committed. And I swear, I absolutely believe that when you are committed, like down to your toes committed, like there's no backdoor commitment, the universe revolves to help you reach your goal. And I was hired. I was working as a freelance journalist. I was writing for the San Francisco Business Times. And I was hired for a freelance project to interview women who were smart with money. Like, I couldn't have made that up. And those interviews changed my life. I not only got smart about my money, but I wrote my first book, Prince Charming Isn't Coming, How Women Get Smart About Money, which Sharon has read, which made me so excited.
Yes.
And here I am, 8 books later, and talking to you about money.
Barbara, that's fabulous. That is so exciting. Okay, so tell me why you think women and men have a problem with money.
Well, I honestly don't know about men, but I think, because I don't work with men. I marry them, but I don't work with them.
Perfect.
Love that.
But I think by and large, men have been groomed to be financially successful. Women have been groomed by and large to be financially dependent, but no one taught either one of us how to manage money. But here's the thing, I think women in particular are very, have trouble with money because 3 reasons. First, we tend to devalue ourselves. We give away our time, our knowledge, our skills for free or bargain prices because we don't believe we're worth more. And it is from this low self-esteem that comes the second reason. We are notoriously codependent. We put everybody else's needs before our own, and not just our children or our family or our friends, but perfect strangers. But you tell us to put our needs first. And what happens is we feel guilty, which brings me to the third and the most important reason, the number one reason that women have difficulty with money, managing it or making it, is because we don't want to be uncomfortable. We don't want to, it's scary. And we don't want to be uncomfortable with the number one requirement for going to the next level, whether it's making more money, managing it better, or losing weight. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable because success always lies just outside your comfort zone. So those are the three reasons. But there's another reason, a big reason. It has to do with being uncomfortable. And I realized this very early when I wrote my first book, which was in 1995. That book came out in 1997. And I realized that women, our difficulties with money has more to do, it's nothing to do with money itself. It has to do with our fear of or ambivalence about power, because we don't understand power from a feminine perspective. And my definition of a powerful woman is someone who knows who she is, who knows what she wants, and expresses that in the world unapologetically. So essentially, our fear of power is our fear of becoming all that we can be, that we become a container that can attract, that can hold, and that can grow our wealth instead of watering ourselves down so we don't make waves.
Barbara, that's fabulous. And you know me, I always think that everything you say applies to men as much as it applies to women. But you always talk about the problem isn't with money, and it's the money problems are never about the money. Talk to me more about that.
Yeah, they're always about power. They're always, like they say, oh, one of the biggest arguments men and women have is in relationships is money. No, it's power. Because money theoretically gives you power. But you think about it, money does not give us power. It is the knowledge of money that gives us the power. Like when I had the money, but my husband had the power because I gave it to him. Let him make all the decisions. It is being able to decide what we want and what we need and fulfilling that. That's power.
Okay, let's talk about wealth. What's your definition of wealth?
So wealth is not an amount. You know, you can ask any one of us, and we'll probably give you a different amount of what it would take to feel wealthy. My definition, the way I define wealth is when you have more than enough and you know it. Now that's the key. When you have more than enough and you know it. I know plenty of people who have many millions and they feel financially insecure. And I know people who have far less and feel bountiful. It's really because the word wealth originated from the Latin root weal, W-E-A-L, and that means well-being. So to me, the whole point of creating wealth is to have well-being. Because wealth without well-being, it's like, what's the point?
So what was one of your biggest surprises when you interviewed 6 women earning 6 figures or more? I'll let you finish your drink.
Thank you. My biggest surprise, well, I had lots of surprises, really lots of them. But my biggest surprise is how are these women making high 6 and 7 figures and how few of them were wealthy. They were so busy making money. They didn't have the time or the knowledge or the skills or the interest in managing it.
So do you think that's another level of the power issue?
I think that's part of it. It could be part of it. It's definitely But more than that, it's the discomfort,
Right.
because money is scary and it can feel overwhelming. And there's a whole industry out there that perpetuates that myth that it's hard, so you need us. But the thing is, what I realized, and believe me, I was part of that. It was it was very confusing until I really started applying myself. And then I realized it's really not that complicated. It doesn't take a lot of money to create wealth, and it doesn't take a lot of time to get smart. It's
You know,
small.
I'm sorry. Go ahead,
No,
please finish. Go ahead.
yeah, doesn't take a lot of time. It's small steps consistently taken that lead to remarkable results.
That's the biggest impact that I think, well, so many, but that you've had on Jill, my life, our life, that the idea that we have to be totally conscious where everything is going. Because so many times we want to get fuzzy, we want to go unconscious, right? And your idea that you have to be conscious where everything is going, it was a game changer for us.
Mm. It was a game changer for me too. It was.
Right?
But
That you can actually be that conscious.
consciousness is where our power is. It is when we aren't conscious of things, either because we push them into our unconscious, or we just don't want to know, we got our blinders on. That's how we give up our power.
Great. So I want to talk about the other end, the under earning. So how do you define the under earning, and what would you like to say about that?
So I was a chronic under earner all my life until I started interviewing women for my second book, Secrets of Six-Figure Women. I started making six figures. Damn, I started making six figures before I even finished writing that book. That was just mind-blowing for me. And I learned a lot about what an under earner was. An under earner, my definition of an under earner is anyone who earns less than she needs or desires despite her efforts to do otherwise.
Hmm.
You can make six figures and be an under earner. And you can make a lot less and not be. Like, I have three daughters. One's a stay-at-home mom. I have two daughters. One's an organic farmer, and one owns a small town movie theater. Neither one of them make a lot of money, but they make enough money to meet their needs. And they're doing what they love because it feeds their soul. Under earning is never is a conscious choice. It never feeds your soul. It is always a condition of deprivation, and not just of money, but of time, of choices, of joy, and most of all, of self-esteem.
That's fabulous. So what do you think is the number one requirement for people upping their earnings?
It's what I said earlier. It's the willingness to be uncomfortable. That's what I noticed in every successful woman I interview. It was always the point they came to where they said, I can't do that. No way. That's too scary. And they did it anyway. And that's what I call the stretch. It's going from what feels impossible to doing it. And that is where, so every time I get scared, and I scare myself all the time, every time I have my little moment of panic, and then I go, oh, goody, that means I'm going to the next level. And in fact, my kids, they're in their late 30s and 40s. To this day, they always call me when they feel stuck or confused and they don't know what to do. They always call me and they say, what should I? And they know exactly what I'm going to tell them. They always say, what should I do? And I always say, what are you most scared to do? And then they tell me, and I said, then that's what you need to do. Because that is how, what they say, the obstacle is the path. That is how you get on the other side. You do what you fear, because that's how you succeed.
Okay, so your latest book is Rewired for Wealth. And tell me what you learned, or give us the nugget about rewiring your brain for wealth.
Does it have to be just a nugget?
No, I want it all. Take as much time as you want. You know that.
It's kind of a complicated thing. So what
Good.
happened is, this just happened about 6 years ago. The damnedest thing happened. I started losing interest in my work. Now, I've been doing this for over 30 years. And this is not just a job. This is like my mission. This is my ministry. I love what I do. But I started losing interest and I started dreading going to work. And this kind of caught me off, it caught me totally off guard. I didn't know what was going on. I felt like something was missing. I don't know if it was missing in my life or I was missing, I don't know. And so I do what I usually do when I get confused is I kind of surrendered. I stepped back and I just created space and I stopped working so hard. And I just said, okay, God, show me what's missing, or if maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore. And one day I'm on my email and this article on neuroscience comes in. And I knew nothing about neuroscience. And I read this article and I swear to God, I swear my brain must have lit up like a Christmas tree, because I said, this is it. This is the missing piece. And I started studying neuroscience. And I started using my life and my clients as guinea pigs and started seeing if I worked the principles of neuroscience into what I was already teaching with personal finance, with psychology, with spirituality. I wonder what would happen. And what I found, it totally expedited the learning curve. It absolutely it increased people's confidence. It just made the whole thing easier. And so that's why this couldn't be a nugget. So
Great.
Let me just explain that our brain is a physical organ in our head, right? And it's made of billions of neurons, brain cells, and it controls our behavior. Everything we see, everything we do, every decision we make is controlled by our brain. So trying to go against the way the brain's wired is a massive undertaking. It's hard work and it's almost impossible. But what I came to understand is the brain is shaped by the mind. The mind is a non-physical entity, the source of our thoughts and feelings. And it is the thoughts and feelings that emanate from our mind that shape our brain. So if you work on changing our thoughts and feelings, you can quickly change those neural pathways in the brain that are controlling our behavior. So that's why I got excited.
So, okay, I want one more. So how do you think most people need to use that rewiring to live a more abundant life?
So took me a while, but I narrowed it down to 3 steps. To fairly quickly train our mind to rewire our brain for wealth and well-being and whatever else you want. So this doesn't work just for money, but since that's my jam, I wrote a book on money and how to use it. So I'll tell you the 3 steps. And you might want to think, well, I'm telling you these 3 steps. Think of a challenge you're facing. It can be with money or it can be something else, but think of a challenge you're facing, something you want to change in your life. Okay, just think of that. I'll tell you the 3 steps very quickly, and then I'll explain a little more. The 3 steps are recognize, reframe, and respond differently. Recognize, reframe, and respond differently. So let's say you have something you want to change. What you do is you recognize the thoughts that are going on regarding that behavior you want to change. Let's say you want more money, you don't have enough, but you notice you're always thinking there's never enough. There's just never enough. There's never enough. So recognize that thought. There's never enough. But you recognize it a certain way. You recognize it with curiosity. Oh, isn't that interesting? I'm having a thought there's never enough. So what you're doing is 2 things. You are separating that thought from the truth, because it's not the truth. It's just something you've thought a lot. So you separate it, and you separate it with curiosity. You don't get mad at yourself. You don't criticize. You don't judge. Oh, isn't that interesting? I'm having a thought that there's never enough. Second, after you've recognized it, you reframe it. You ask yourself, how can I see this differently? You reframe it to something more positive, like an affirmation, like, oh, there's plenty. I always have enough. Now, you won't believe it. You absolutely won't believe it. But you keep repeating it often enough. And here's why the reframe is important. You repeat it often enough, and that neural pathway that says there's never enough starts weakening. And the neural pathway, you start building a new neural pathway that says there's more than enough. So you recognize, you reframe from with a more positive way of looking at it, even if you don't believe it. You repeat it over and over and over and over. And then third, you respond differently. You respond as if that affirmation, as if that reframe is true. And what that means is you do things you wouldn't ordinarily do. And that doesn't mean you start spending all your money just to prove that, oh, I always have enough. No, you start doing things that will encourage more than enough. You start writing down what you spend maybe and putting it in the bank. You start doing things that don't feel comfortable and don't feel right, and your brain will scream, don't do it. If ever your brain screams, don't do it, you know you're starting the rewire process.
That's fabulous. I mean, that's fabulous. So
Just let me say,
okay,
it's fabulous, but in the beginning, it takes massive effort because your brain does not want to change. Your brain is lazy. Your brain wants to take the path of least resistance, which is the deepest wired neural pathway. And so it doesn't want to change. So the first couple of weeks, you have to really be repetitive in doing this over and over. Notice your resistance. The resistance is a good sign. It means you're rewiring. You just notice it and keep repeating and keep responding differently. And eventually it's amazing how quickly you could change.
that's great. I mean, I get so inspired by that. So I also want to talk about your book, Sacred Success, right? And A Course for Financial Miracles, right? So talk to us about that book, what that book's about, what the motivation was for that book, and what you were really longing to create through that book.
You know, they say you love all your children the same. I love all my books, but that's my favorite child. Because this was probably, my first was the scariest to write because I didn't think I could write. This was the scariest because I came out of my spiritual closet. Because for me, my overcoming my financial difficulties was above all a spiritual experience. But I never talked about it because, you know, I had clients like Smith Barney, like all these financial firms. I was speaking to them. I thought, what would they think if I came out and talked about how the spiritual factored? So, but I did. And it was incredible. And I'm very proud of myself for doing it. What I intended to write, I didn't intend for that to be a spiritual book. I tended to write it because one night after I wrote my book, Overcoming Underearning, a couple of years after I wrote it, I woke up in the middle of the night because I had been making six figures for a long time. And one night I just woke up in the middle of the night and I had a new goal. And it was make millions, help millions, and give millions.
Say that again.
Huh?
Say it again. I want everybody to hear it.
My new goal was to make millions, help millions, and give millions. You like that?
I do like that. You know I do.
So I thought, I know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it just the way I overcame my underearning. I'm going to interview women who make millions, figure out how to do it, and that'll be my next book. 3 years later, it was 2009. I was nowhere. I had a ton of interviews. I was nowhere near making seven figures. In fact, 2009 was probably my worst financial year I'd had in a long time. I had no book. I was just feeling like crap about myself. And I remember talking to a coach and she said, Barbara, you're too into doing. You need time for just being. And I knew she was right. So I made a reservation 2 hours to my home at a hotel, and I was going to take a silent retreat. And I took my transcripts with me, all these interviews I had with these women who made millions, because I just felt there was something there that I had missed. So on this retreat, reading over those transcripts, it just became so clear. It wasn't just that these women were making these outrageous amounts of money, and I was kind of like dazzled by their success, but it was the way they were doing it. They were doing it very differently than with the way the world, i.e. men, modeled. And it's like, that's when I discovered this whole new game they were playing, this whole new way of approaching success. And I called it sacred success. And I defined sacred success as pursuing your soul's purpose for your own bliss and the benefit of others while being richly rewarded. So sacred success, and the thing about sacred success is I was trying to do it just like I'd been trying to, like I made 6 figures. So can I just give a little backstory here? There's three levels of financial development. 3 levels. There's survival, stability, and affluence. Survival is not enough. Stability is just enough or almost just enough. And affluence is more than enough. To go from survival to stability, you must have a profit motive. Profit is a good thing. You want to make money. You love money. Money's good. But to go from stability, just enough, almost enough, to affluence, you have to give up profit as your primary goal. It's still an intended outcome. You still want to make a profit. But the primary goal of sacred success is no longer profit. The primary goal is greatness. And I define greatness, paraphrasing a quote by Fred Buchner. Greatness is that place where your deep gladness, doing what you were put on this planet to do, meets the world's deep hunger. And that is what sacred success is about.
Say that again.
What?
That's fantastic. All right, I want to open this
Wait,
up.
wait, someone asked me something.
Would you just repeat that last sentence again?
Greatness?
Yes.
Yeah.
Greatness is, so I'm paraphrasing a quote.
Yeah.
Greatness is that place. The quote says, greatness is that place where God calls you, where your great happiness, yet doing what you are on this planet to do, that thing which comes easy and lights you up, meets the world's deep hunger. Okay, Nancy?
Thank you.
Okay, I want to open this up for questions. Anybody have a question for Barbara today?
Barbara, this is Sharon. I've also done some classes where I've used the personality types, you know, like particularly Brad Klotz's work. I like his stuff, where we've divided into 4 different types of personalities, like money avoidance and, you know, money vigilance and money worship and money status, those types of things. And in doing individual counseling, particularly with couples, that has really helped. Have you gotten into doing any of that kind of work?
I used to do the Myers-Briggs and a couple of others.
Myers-Briggs, yeah.
I used to when I was a career counselor, and way back in the 70s. I have not done that, but I would imagine with couples, it's brilliant. I don't work with couples.
It is, yeah.
And it really helps to know your own style, even if you're not working with a couple. So I think it's brilliant. I just haven't. It's just not part of my thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm very much like you. I feel this is what I've been called to do, and I've been doing it for the last 8 years for the military. And by the way, I'm 82 years old, so I kind of came out of retirement to do that.
Oh, Sharon, you are my inspiration. I'm 75, and I keep thinking, how can I keep doing this? Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm taking yeah. One of the things I was thinking about adding into this is I just took the numerology lady with Phoenix. Anyway, I just took her class of numerology, and I found that quite interesting. Is maybe being another spoke in this, not just the, you know, just to put that in as a chapter, maybe.
I think it's a great idea.
This is
I think
something to look at. I thought that
I-
was very interesting stuff, just like the personality stuff was. And you know, I work with a whole bunch of. I'm the financial counselor, but all the rest of the people are mental health counselors, and they send people to me. And I found that the mental health counselors are some of the worst people about managing their own money
are you
because they're
kidding?
money avoiders. They don't care. They
Well,
just don't care. I mean,
I don't know
you
if they don't care, but I know when I was trying to
Yeah.
get my money act together, I kept going to therapist after therapist after therapist.
right.
Their own finances were a mess.
That's
But
what I
here-
mean.
But here's the interesting thing. When I wrote my first book, Prince Charming Isn't Coming, I wanted to find women who were smart with money. That's who I wanted to interview. So
Mhm.
I first went to women who were in the financial field, like mortgage brokers and financial advisors and
Well, that's what I
accountants.
meant. Yeah. Mhm.
Do you know how many of those women told me, listen, I do this for a living, but my own finances are a mess?
Yep.
Right. I believe that.
That's when I knew. See, to me, getting
Mhm.
smart about money is a four-pronged process. It is what the financial industry focuses on is the outer work of wealth, which
Yes.
are, telling the difference between a stock and a bond and how to negotiate, all very important.
Right.
But if you can't get that, like I couldn't, then it's the inner work. Looking at the psychological, the attitudes, beliefs, the decisions you made about yourself and money. And
Mhm.
particularly with women, there's a third prong. Because most women, once we are financially stable, most women, research has shown, are not really motivated by money. What motivates us is the opportunity to help, to give back to our communities. And so when you understand that third prong, which is the spiritual, because we are all here for a purpose. And we can't possibly pursue our purpose and play full out if we're struggling to make ends meet, if we're drowning in debt. So when you help
Right.
them understand why they're here, what their purpose is, and how money can help them make a difference in the world, it's huge. And
Yes.
the fourth prong is that mind-body connection, understanding how the mind, your thoughts, affect
Mhm.
your actions. So Sharon, that was my way too long way of saying anything
No.
you can put in that will
Yeah.
help people understand themselves better is brilliant.
Mhm. Yeah. I was just asked. I just left my job February 28th, and I was asked by. I happened to, on a fluke thing, I happened to counsel a doctor at this place called Intrepid Spirit, which there's a few centers around the country. And Intrepid Spirit was just built recently for people with traumatic brain injuries from the war, mainly from the war, or from anyway. And so she wanted me to come over and do a class for them on money, but I left too soon, so I couldn't do that. But I did use a lot of Eric Butterworth's stuff from spiritual economics in my counseling for affirmations and things like that. And I would get people to change by doing that.
Great.
Yeah.
Sharon, thank you for that. Thank you.
You're
That's
welcome.
fabulous. Any other questions anybody has? Yes, Linda.
Hi, Barbara. It's great to have you here and hear your story. The question I have for you, do you find women are more successful financially if they are working for themselves rather than working for corporate America?
Whether they're more, I find if they're working for themselves, they're happier than when they're working for corporate America. But I haven't seen a difference in their ability to make or manage money. I haven't. I don't know. Why? What have you seen, Linda?
Well, I worked in corporate America, through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and I always felt that it was a male-driven experience that even if I was advancing, I still was held back from earning as much as a coworker. And in one job, I found out somebody that was reporting to me was making more than me, and I was his boss.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that really bothered me. And at this point in my life, I don't want to go back into corporate America at all. I just was so turned off by it all.
Oh, yeah, you're not alone. You're not alone. I get that a lot. However, there are some people that are not meant. I mean, several of the six-figure women I interviewed, they tried to go out on their own and they had to go back to corporate America at a place that was women friendly.
Yeah.
But not everyone is set out to be an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
So if it's finding the right soil to be planted in, the right culture that will respect and appreciate you.
Yeah, I would think that things may have gotten better since the time that I was, way back when, but I don't know.
It's
I just,
slow. It is
Yeah.
slow changing. But there are women friendly. There are women, there are companies that really do appreciate and value women.
Okay.
And hopefully that'll change and there'll be more of them.
I certainly hope so.
So what are you
Anybody
doing now,
else?
Linda?
Pardon me?
What are you doing now?
Any other questions anybody has?
But then we
Right.
can find out what Linda's doing.
Oh, great. I'm
Right.
sorry.
Right now, I'm not doing anything that brings income. I'm in training to be a licensed Unity teacher. I would like to have my own business, but I don't know what or in what direction. It's still gelling.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay.
Okay.
Any
I
other
had my
questions?
way with Linda. Now we can go move on.
All right.
Okay,
Any
I
other
have another
questions?
question. What do you do when someone you can sense that they really aren't going to change? They really don't want to put in the work. But I know it's their spiritual journey. So did you just say, hey, they just got to go a little bit further in their spiritual journey till they get worse
You got to
off?
go. You got to go deeper. You got to go
How'd you
deeper.
do that? How did you do that?
You ask questions. Now, remember, I was trained as a therapist. So,
Yeah, see, and I'm
But-
not. I
yeah,
was trained as a
but-
financial planner. So,
but here's what you can do, Sharon.
okay.
Here's what you can do. You can
Mhm.
ask them about what scares them. Ask them about because anybody who doesn't want to go, they come to you, they won't go further. It's all self-protection. It's too threatening for them to move farther.
Uh-huh.
So you
Okay.
need to help them examine, to kind of raise up, to be aware of, because so much of their fear is unconscious, to find out what is it they're afraid of. What's the worst thing can happen? I remember I've told Richard the story. It was at a Unity church
Mhm.
when I was in the depth of my panic about money. And I was living in Kansas City, and I went to Unity Village. I don't know why. One morning I woke up and I said, I'd never been to Unity Church. But one morning I woke up and I said, I want to go to Unity Church. And my husband, I'm a nice Jewish girl, and my husband's from Israel.
Oh,
My husband looks
my
at me
God.
and says, what the hell are you going to church for? I said, I don't know. I just got to go. And I couldn't. This is when I was really, really stuck. I couldn't move forward. I wanted to move forward. But if I had gone to you and you would have told me what to do, I would have said, I can't. But this minister asked us to close our eyes. And he asked 3 questions. And those 3 questions changed everything for me. And the first question was, if you had 6 months to live,
Okay.
where would you be? Who would you be with? What would you be doing? And the second question is, if you died today, what would be left unlived?
Mhm.
And the third question was, if nothing changed in 5 years, nothing changed, nothing, what would your life look like? And those brought so much to the surface for me. And so my point is, you don't have to be a therapist, but you do have to ask questions to find out what is it that scares them. The question
Okay.
I always ask, one question I always ask when people are really frozen, or even not so frozen, is what was it like for you growing up? And find
What I do
out
too.
what their parents thought of, because our behavior, our attitudes, our habitual responses to money is usually inherited from our family of origin.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I always ask, what was it like for you growing up?
Mhm.
What was your parents? What were the messages? Because we have been conditioned, and find out what is the bottom of that conditioning.
Mhm. Are you familiar with George Kinder and his 3 questions?
Yeah, George Kindle.
Okay. Yeah, I went to his workshop, and
Okay, great.
I was the person he practiced on at the end of the workshop, which was just a great experience for me to be
Well,
interviewed by him.
Sharon, you
So,
know how to do this.
I do,
You
yeah,
know how to
yeah,
do this.
yeah, yes. And so I use those questions, and they're just mind blowing. They really are.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
when
they are.
anybody says,
Kind of the same thing.
when you have a resistant client,
Mm-hmm.
the definition of resistance is simply it's a psychological reaction to an internal conflict. Part of you
Okay.
wants to move ahead, part of you doesn't. And that's where you get resistance. So one of the ways to work with people who are in resistance is to really get to know the part that doesn't. They're there because the part does, but get to know and ask probing questions about the part that doesn't. Tell me about that part. Tell me what you're afraid of. I'll give you do we have time? I can give you a personal story. So I was doing great. You know, I had this kind of like mind-opening thing with the Unity minister. I moved. Anyway, I wrote my first book. Prince Charming isn't coming. It hadn't come out yet. I was getting all ready, and suddenly, the damnedest thing happened. I started finding my eyes glazing over, my brain fogging up, and I couldn't understand money. And I would try to read about it, and I couldn't understand it. And I had a friend. His name was David, and he said, "Oh my God, Barbara, you're going stupid again," just like I did. And so I made an appointment with a therapist. And I sat down at this therapist and I said, "Daniel, I really want to get smart about money. I really do. You have to help me. I really do." And Daniel said, "Okay, wait, I'm going to move." And he moved to another chair. And he said, "Now I want you to talk to me like I'm a voice in your head." I go, "Okay, Daniel, I really want to get smart about money. I really do." And as a voice in my head, he said, "No, you don't." And it was like, those words took the air out of my defenses. It's like I couldn't argue with them. It was that moment I saw there was a part of me that was terrified that if I got smart, my parents would be mad. I was terrified that if I took charge, I would lose everything. Better to let my ex do that. I was terrified that if I was really financially successful, a man wouldn't love me. It was by getting to know those parts of me that didn't want to that allowed me, and it was right then, I never had a problem since. It was that I just moved past it.
Yeah. Well, I remember in one of Richard's sermons, Richard, I use this a lot because I kind of borrowed from you. You said that Jesus always asked people, "Do you want to be healed?" And so I've used that with people before. I said, Jesus always asks them, "Are you just more comfortable staying poor, or do you want to move on?" And so it's kind of the same type of thing. But I do steal some of your stuff, Richard. I'm just not telling you when I do.
Okay, good deal. That's fair. All right, Barbara. So let's talk about your spiritual life. You mentioned going to Unity. Talk to us about your spiritual journey and how has that impacted your life?
So I was at my wit's end, and I wasn't talking to my parents. My life was falling apart. My husband was still gambling. I would go to the bank and I didn't know where my money was. It would said no money in the bank. And we moved from Kansas City to San Francisco. And my first week in San Francisco, I was standing in line at the grocery store. It was a little market. And the person behind me, I heard her talking about A Course in Miracles. Have you ever heard of the Course in Miracles?
Yes, I've taken it.
I had never heard of the Course in Miracles. And I leaned back and I said, "What's the Course in Miracles?" And she said, "I don't know. I just bought it. It's a book." And it was published at the time a couple blocks from where we were living. And I went and I bought it. And at the time it was 3 different books. Now it's combined into one book. The text, the workbook, and the manual for teachers. And I started reading that book. Has anybody read the course, been a student of the course?
I've done it. Yeah. Took me 9 years, but I did it.
It's a bitch, right? It's
a bitch. It took me 9 years to get through it. Yeah.
understand that sucker. Swear to God, couldn't understand a thing, but I couldn't stop reading it. But every once in a while, these gems would pop up. And it changed everything for me because the Course in Miracles calls itself a course in mind training. And it's really about how we are God. We are God. We are powerful creators, just like God. God made us in his, her image. And he gave us a mind that can create. And when you train your mind, you create a reality, a new reality. And so that was the beginning of my journey. And that was 41 years ago. And so I still, every day I do a lesson in the course, which is the workbook. Every day, my husband and I do a lesson in the course. I've been doing it for 40 years. So one of these days, I'm really going to get it. One of these days, I'm really.
Okay, Barbara, do you have a favorite lesson?
Oh yeah, I have a lot of favorite lessons, but I think there's a lesson that I use as a prayer. And I don't know which lesson it is, but it's one of the early ones. And the lesson is, above all else, let me see this differently. Because a miracle, all a miracle is, and you students know this, is a shift in perception, shifting from seeing through the eyes of the ego to seeing through the eyes of love. So anytime I gotta get it all wadded up, I always just go, above all else, help me see this differently.
That's beautiful. So how do you think that has impacted your work?
It's everything. It's everything I do. And I don't always talk about the principles if someone's not there, but usually people aren't attracted to me unless they're in the spirit. In fact, nobody's attracted to me unless they're in the spiritual mode. So, and my book, Rewire for Wealth, was very much based on it, because while I use neuroscience, the science of the brain change, it was the principles of mind training from the Course in Miracles that I
Right.
used.
That's so beautiful, Barbara. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have a question for Barbara?
Oh, Betty, thank you. Yeah, she put on the chat my book. Thank you.
Yes. All right.
And
So Barbara,
if anybody would like to be coached, if you have a problem or an issue you'd like some help with, I'm here to help if I can.
that's fabulous. Okay, Kathleen, sorry.
Okay. I have no problem being uncomfortable. I've been uncomfortable for 22 years since I started my company. Sometimes less uncomfortable, but pretty much uncomfortable this whole time. We've had this up and down kind of thing. And it's interesting that the spiritual side of it, I'm searching for where that is. I have a product. It's a great product.
Wait, Kathleen, just tell me what you do. What is your company?
I make an ergonomic gel seat cushion, which sounds so boring, but
No, really?
yeah.
Something. I have such a bad back. Oh my God.
Okay, Richard, chime in. You sit on it.
Yep, I got one right now. Betty's showing
Oh my
hers.
gosh. I want to know. Okay. Well, I digress. This isn't about me. This is about you. Go on.
That's okay. So I'm like, okay, my affirmation has been to make millions of dollars while helping millions of people be more comfortable. And I'm like, is that enough? I mean,
so you know what the course would say? This is my other favorite saying from the course, and I do this all the time. The course says, my favorite is, ask not for love, but seek and find all the barriers within yourself built against it. So the reason I say this for you is, ask not for success, ask not for a partner, ask not for more money, but seek and find all the barriers within yourself. So that's the work I would tell you to do. Just like I was saying to Sharon, it's when things aren't working, we always get what we want, not always what we ask for. The course says we get what we want, but that refers to prayers of the heart, not words that we use. So if you're not having the success you want, look what is inside you. And it's almost always unconscious. But the
Oh,
idea is to bring up the unconscious.
And I know what a lot of my barriers are. It comes from childhood. It's
Of
stuff
course
I'm
it
working
does.
through all the time with Richard and multitude of, and now you, I mean, I just downloaded your book on Audible, and you know, yes.
So the number one thing, and then they don't ever, I've never seen this talked about, and I wrote about it in Rewire, but the number one thing I have found with my clients, the number one thing that is interfering, Richard asked, what is the number one thing that keeps women? And I don't talk about this very much, but the number one thing is unhealed trauma. It's repressed emotions or unhealed trauma. And if you have unhealed trauma, what happens is anytime you start getting uncomfortable, anytime things get scary, your primitive brain will automatically go into fight, flight, and freeze, and your thinking brain just shuts down. And it's not your fault. The trauma is protecting you. Your brain is protecting you.
I totally understand that, and I love your three, you know, the recognize, reframe, and just respond differently, which is, I mean, it's what we do at Unity, right?
But
Yeah.
but with trauma, even that defies healing with just those three. It often takes a skilled trauma therapist that can bypass your brain and get in there to heal. And if you have some inhaled trauma, I really would encourage you. I just found out about a trauma that I didn't even know I had because I thought it was normal. That's what everybody had. And I went back into trauma. I've been in and out of trauma therapy a lot, but I just went back into EMDR therapy because and it doesn't need to take a long time to heal. You got a great thing going, Kathleen, with this business. You really do.
I mean, we've been around for 20 some odd years selling, and you know, every time I get to a point where I'm really scared that that I'm gonna have to give this up, somebody calls me and says, oh my God, you changed my life. This has made it so that I can actually go to dinner with my family because I can sit. I mean, it sounds such a simple thing, but
No, it doesn't. It sounds really real to me. So, but you're not making it to the degree, you're not succeeding to the degree which you want. Is that what I'm hearing?
yes, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's where I would encourage you to do the work.
The trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
Oh,
Richard on it all the time. I want to go, can I just get this out of my head? You know?
you can't think your way out of trauma and you can't talk your way out of trauma. Just know that. It's stubborn. And it's not your fault.
No.
Tell me the name of your company. I want to look. Where do I go to look?
It's
What's it mean?
Gelco
What?
products. Here, I'll put it in the chat. It's
Put it in the chat.
Gelco products. So
GELCO.
Gelco?
products.com, gelcoproducts.com. And we actually have inventory sitting at the port right now.
Is it on Amazon or do I need to order?
It is on Amazon through our distributor, and you can just search for the G seat. And
What's it called? What seat?
The G seat, because I couldn't think of anything else to call it.
Is it called G? Just a G
G,
seat. Okay.
as the letter G.
So G,
Okay.
and then the word seat. And if you search that on Amazon, it should come up. And
Okay.
we have 3 different products: the G Seat Lite, which is great for travel; the medium-sized one, which you can take anywhere, it just has a little more gel in it, and then the really big one that is really comfy. That's the one that Betty has.
Oh, Betty. Yeah. Okay. Because I ordered something that was like this big and it's foam and it just didn't work for me.
You know, what happens is there are all these foam things on the market, and you know, foam is great for some things, but it compresses and then you lose your ergonomics. So we have a dual layer construction. So you have foam, but you have gel over the top, which disperses the pressure, and you don't have any pressure points.
So
it saved me. I was spending so much time on the computer. I was literally chafing. I was so uncomfortable. It's wonderful.
Okay.
I love it.
It's beautiful.
So I'm hearing this and I'm okay. And Wade Dyer says, don't give up.
The course says You're never there for the reason you think.
Yeah, right.
I thought I was here to talk to you guys. I was here to learn about the GC.
Sorry, Richard, I didn't mean to be marketing.
No, I love it, man. Work the room, baby. Work the room.
Yeah, you can tell I have marketing in my background too. Put the book on the screen.
Yeah, I love Betty. You're great.
Betty's a connector.
I love it.
Okay, Barbara. So tell us 3 things that we can do to get smarter about money.
Okay, so I call this the busy woman's recipe for financial success. And this is what I did because, first of all, I was totally intimidated. And Sharon, this may help your clients. I was totally intimidated by money, scared the hell out of me, anything to do with financial. So I did something really smart. And I learned that, like what I said earlier, it's small steps that are consistently taken. So I did 3 things, and I still do to this day. Every week, read something about money, even if it's just for 1 or 2 minutes, just because it's just, it's opening the newspaper, the business section of the newspaper and perusing the headlines, or standing in line at the market and taking out money magazine instead of People and leafing through it, or before you go to bed, read 1 paragraph, because it's so overwhelming. Just you break it down. I would, when I was interviewing those smart women for Prince Charming, they all subscribed to the Wall Street Journal. So I subscribed to the Wall Street Journal, and that thing came every day, and I couldn't understand it.
Yeah.
So I took it, section C at the time, it was section C, and I put it on the kitchen counter, and I figured I'd walk by it. I called it the school of osmosis. I just walk by it and I pick something up, and it's amazing how much you can learn just by familiarizing yourself with the jargon, current trend. So every week, every day, read something about money. Every week, have a conversation about money, preferably with someone that knows more than you. Because I really believe it's our secrecy and silence that keeps us stuck. So I just started, anybody who knew anything, I would just start asking them questions. Advice someone gave you, what's the worst advice? What's the biggest mistake you've ever made? What's the smartest thing you ever did? What would you advise for me? What should I read? Just start talking to people. So every day read, every week talk, and every month save. Automatically have money transferred from your checking account, your payroll check, to a savings account. Because you don't miss what you don't see. And it's amazing. And it's small amounts. People make the mistake of automating too much money. And then they have to kind of go into it and defeat the cause. You automatically have money transferred. So if every day you read, every week you talk, every month you save, you will be amazed in 3 or 4 months the difference it'll make. Barbara,
Once again, I love you. I think you're fabulous. Thank you for giving us this hour. You were delightful, and I just so appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. Wait, Sharon, you want to ask something?
Session. How do we get a coaching session with you?
Well, here's the thing.
Contact?
Thank you. I don't do coaching anymore except I have an online community, and I only coach people in that online community. And the online community is called The Wealth Connection. And just go to my website. My website is Barbara-Huson.com. And the reason I only coach people in my community, because I have found being in community, what the research has shown, that women who learn with other women, it actually speeds up the learning process and they build their confidence quicker. So the coaching is so much easier. They just shoot through it.
Yeah. I just want to know how to make the change from, I want to talk to someone about it, and I'll be glad to pay for it, how to make the change from working for somebody else now to doing this on my own.
No, you don't have to pay for that. I'll talk to you. Just email me. Email me at Barbara. My email is Barbara@Barbara-Huson.com. And I would love to support you with that.
Okay, thank you.
Barbara, you are so generous. Thank you. for all the ways you blessed my life, for doing this hour with us. We love you. God bless you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You have a great group here. I like these women.
We do.
You have a great group.
Mhm.
All right,
Okay.
Barbara. Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you,
Bye.
ladies.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.